For about 5 years, Mountain Lake PBS has been partnering with Vision to Action, which is a group of community leaders here in Clinton County working to set goals and get people engaged in planning for the future. And here to talk about the next Vision to Action event on Saturday, March 21st, is David Corrier, who is the Director of Staffing Services at ETS, a staffing firm and employment agency in Plattsburgh. David is a Vision to Action Committee member. Nice to have you here. And Nancy Jean Osborne is the principal at Bailey Avenue Elementary School in the city of Plattsburgh. Welcome to you as well. Nice to have you here. Yeah. David, why don't we start by telling us what is the Get Ready to Learn event that's being hosted by Vision to Action? What's it all about?
Well, as you might know, Vision to Action focuses on 4 main areas here in our region, and they are education, transportation, the arts, and recreation. So each year we try to have some event that's going to highlight one of those 4 areas or what's happening in those 4 areas. As we moved into 2015, and with everything that's happening in education, we felt like it would be great to have an event that would focus on pre-K learning and early childhood education. It's really the foundation of everything that's happening in education. We just thought that if we had an event that would highlight what's happening, what are the offerings here in our region, and have it at a day and time that would be most accessible to the local citizens, we think we'd be off to a good start.
Vision to Action is partnering with educators, local organizations to create this fun fair. It's going to have a lot of family activities. But there's also going to be informational booths for the parents, and I guess the idea is that you're going to be providing them with a lot of information about important early childhood development, health and nutrition and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we wanted, it would have been easy to have an event maybe on a Thursday evening where the usual parties in Plattsburgh show up and participate, but we really wanted to have something that anybody who's a parent who has a young child could bring their child to the event on a Saturday when they most likely would not be working, bring them, have their children be entertained, have them be occupied in some fashion so that they could learn about all the different offerings that there are in our region. It's like most things. It's sometimes people feel like there's nothing out there, but oftentimes it's just a dissemination of information that needs to take place so that they really understand that there's greater supports for whatever they might be challenged with in their lives, and that's what we're trying to do with this event. Providing
tools for them, again, for what they hope will be helping their kids to succeed.
Right.
Nancy Jane, educators are seeing study after study showing that these earlier years, say ages 2 to 4, really are critical in children's development and their success when they go to school.
They're absolutely critical, and I would even go further and say pregnancy to age 4 to when we start to get them into school. And I would encourage parents and child care providers, and I know that we encourage people and we try to partner with obstetrician's office to help, even moms who are pregnant to have the best health care options and anything. And then with our younger children, ages birth through 4, any kind of literacy activities, reading to children, and just talking to children as much as they can so that when we get them, there's not a vocabulary gap that we often see. Sometimes we see as much as a 40 million vocabulary gap between children of poverty and children who are not in poverty, and then that's our job to bridge that gap. So we're trying to help that there's no gap when our kids come to us in school.
Obviously, prenatal nutrition, health, and then almost immediately after birth, literacy, reading, and
start reading as soon as you can, as soon as you get them home.
And is there mounting evidence that these really determine not only how prepared kids are to come to school and learn, but how successful they're going to be through school?
We see a great difference in children who have come from homes where they've been read to, where they've been actually just talked to. When families talk to their children, talk about their day, talk about what they're doing during the day, even little things like what they're going to have for lunch, where you're going, if you're going to the grocery store, when you're at the grocery store, and it's not always easy to do, but because you're busy at the grocery store, but oh, we're picking out vegetables because we're going to have corn for dinner this week, and that's going to go with this. It's kind of like a narration of what you're doing, but it's so important for preschoolers and even infants to just hear that vocabulary and that narration. And that makes a huge difference because those are actual pre-literacy skills and pre-numeracy skills. And it makes a big, huge difference for when they come to school.
And when they do get to school, in many cases, you can look at a child's ability to learn that early, say in their first or second year in school, and get a pretty good indication of how successful they're going to be throughout school and beyond?
We do. We do some screening tool. New York State law has us screen children, that's by law. But then we actually do benchmarking starting right in kindergarten. And you see the difference in children who have that background, and it usually carries them right through, unless there's some, learning disability, which, would ferret that out. But children who come to us with a literacy background and a vocabulary background, and we call it background knowledge, where they've just been exposed, and it doesn't mean you have to take them on big vacations to, Disney World or out of state. There's a lot to do just locally, right in their town. We have a name for it. It's called place-based education, but it just means go to the park, talk to them about swinging. Here's the playground, kick a ball with them, tell them this is a soccer ball, this is a baseball, we're going to go in the pool, all kinds of things. This is riding a bike, and just talk to them about it and have them talk to you. Read a book with them, have them point out the pictures. Those are the things that make a difference when they come to school.
And is it more of an issue in more rural areas, like much of Clinton County, where maybe Head Start or certified daycare, quality daycare, and other preschool services aren't as readily available?
It tends to be, and I've seen it not just in Clinton County, but also where I was before in Genesee County, which was very similar to Clinton County. And the difference in those areas, in the very rural areas, is there just aren't the services readily available and readily accessible, so parents have a harder time maybe getting to the library for library hour, story hour, getting to Family Connections, where our Family Connections right here in Plattsburgh has lots of activities for families, so families are more isolated. And then young families may not know, where am I going to get books? How am I going to get to, here at the Champlain Valley Mall every Thursday evening, any family can go get a book. And if they're out further, they may not be able to get to the mall. So the rural areas have a harder time accessing services, and that's kind of our job, to figure out how do we bring the services to the families with young children.
And oftentimes rural areas by nature tend to be lower income, and you see more poverty, which plays into it as well.
Absolutely.
Pre-kindergarten is offered in some schools here in the city, or all the elementary schools?
In the city school district, and I am the pre-K director for the city school district, and we follow the UPK guidelines. We do the UPK grant, and we have a program both at Bailey Avenue and at Momot schools, and we also collaborate and provide funding for the Head Start program in the city and with the SUNY Child Care Center over at Plattsburgh. So we have a pretty rich program provided by the UPK funding.
A handful, or maybe a couple of other school districts outside of the city have universal pre-K.
They do.
Beekmantown and a few others. But there are quite a few areas in Clinton County where it's not offered and not an option.
Right, and it depends on whether or not the public school takes advantage of their UPK grant funding, or if it's available to them. You have to have somebody who can apply for the grant and follow the guidelines and do the collaborative grant, all of that. So
we've heard the governor talking about that for the past couple of years. There was the push within the past couple of years to expand universal pre-K across New York, mostly in New York City. I think really the only school district up here, it was Lake Placid, that's added it for about 40 or 50 kids. Is it just too expensive for smaller rural school districts to add pre-K?
I think what happens with the small rural districts, and again, I'm going to speak on my experience from Byron Virgin, where I was before, the grant doesn't cover all of the expense of running the pre-K. So when a school district is looking at it, when a small rural district is looking at it, they know that the UPK grant is not going to cover the full amount. So the district and the school board has to look and say, okay, are we ready, and do we have the funding to supplement the grant for pre-K? And as we know, school funding is not always right there for you, and so they have to make that decision of whether or not they can do that with their funds and still fund the K through 12
And with
program.
the gap elimination adjustment, we've seen school districts the past 5-6 years lose a lot of money, so
right.
they have to make some tough choices. So if they haven't already established a program, it may be hard to say,
do they
move
add a
ahead with it,
program?
right?
Exactly.
Within the city, how much of a difference does it make for early childhood development to have universal pre-K?
It makes a huge difference for us. In our program, the one that we run within our schools, the program is in the schools. We have David's son is in our program, and being an early childhood educator, I just, it's near and dear to my heart. But our kids who are in our pre-K programs, they come to our schools, they're part of our school, they get to know the school, they're taught by certified early childhood educators, there's a TA in the program. They, they just become part of our school communities, the family becomes part of our school community. So that transition to kindergarten is just perfectly seamless. And then I'm going to branch out and talk about our collaborative programs. We collaborate with Head Start and with SUNY Plattsburgh. And because we do that, they also have to have certified teachers and certified TAs, and then they're overseen by the director of the program. And they have to do their screening and their assessments, and they have to follow certain guidelines. So then they have to hand that in at the end of the year, and that has to go into the state. So, it's a pretty big spreadsheet that I have to fill out, and they want to make sure that we're going to collaborate with them. So we're seeing some really good data come through on our 4-year-olds, and then we meet and we do transition plans with our kids. So we get to know even the kids from SUNY and the kids from Head Start who are coming in, and we do professional development with the people from Head Start, the people from SUNY. And it's just become a really good collaborative effort. And that is beneficial for our kids.
And for kids in the city, that certainly helps them. Does it point to the problem maybe in the outlying areas of Clinton County if they don't have a good daycare or Head Start or universal pre-K? Does that leave them without really any good options to help prepare their kids in the same way?
I think it doesn't benefit them as well it does us. We have the proximity, we can get together easily. When we have a meeting, it's quick and easy. Our city is 5 square miles, and we can do that quickly. And we've talked a lot about how can we help our partners in the more rural areas, and it's something I would be very interested in working on expanding. And I'm happy to work on that in any way that we can to help early childhood in the North Country.
David, as a dad, how much of a difference have you noticed with your sons having the universal pre-K?
Well, my son Reese just loves it. He loves going to school. He loves seeing. We have friends who have children at Bailey Avenue who might be a year or two older, and he sees them in the hallway, and he feels like he goes to school all day long, even though he's there for 2.5 hours, starting from noon to 2:30. But he does really well. He enjoys it. He enjoys the what do they call it? The interactive play, or
Purposeful interactive play.
Yeah, and just every day, I think he looks forward to going to school. And when we're on vacation, he's wondering when he's going to be able to go back to school. And Bailey Avenue has just been fantastic. We love our kids going there, and Lucas did very well there, and is doing very well as well over at Oak Street. All around, it's been a great program.
Have you noticed, you think, with Reese that he was better prepared to learn when he got to kindergarten because of going through pre-K?
Yeah, without a doubt, he'll be better prepared. But I think that
he hasn't reached kindergarten quite yet.
He's in pre-K now.
He's in pre-K right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that in some of the comments that you were making earlier, Nancy, is that people can talk about programs and dollars all day long, but I think the real message today is that families can do free things, free activities with their children. And that's part of what we want to show at this event, is that there's a lot that you can do with your children that is free. It just takes interactive, it just takes time, and it just takes concern so that your kids can be better prepared for both pre-K and kindergarten. I think other people have mentioned, you have to get them ready to read so that they can be ready to learn. Isn't that sort of the two-step process? And
And so a big part of that is parents really doing
Oh,
that. We talk about
absolutely.
all these programs, we talk about universal pre-K, but much of this truly lies with the parents. If the parents are reading with the children and get the children reading at an earlier age, that's a big part of this.
Yeah, and in the North Country here, we have a bunch of individuals. We have certainly a poverty problem. We're hoping that there'll be a lot of individuals with young families who come to the event on the 21st and who learn that not only are there programs that help support them, but there's also activities and ways that they can interact with their kids so that they do, again, better prepare them for pre-K, better prepare them for kindergarten, and then better prepare them for life, honestly.
The governor is talking about expanding pre-K to include 3-year-olds. I think he has pitched that proposal to lawmakers this year, talking about $27 million statewide to get it going. Do you see the need for that here within the city? Would it be a good idea to expand universal pre-K not only for 4-year-olds but to 3-year-olds as well?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. However, I think before the governor pitches 3-year-olds for universal pre-K, I would like to see him expand the current universal pre-K to include all 5-year-olds and fund it properly so that all 4-year-olds could attend pre-K, because that's not funded yet. So I think before he jumps to include our 3-year-olds, and I'm not opposed to it, let's take care of our 4-year-olds. And then let's take care of our 3-year-olds.
Is there enough quality daycare, Head Start, and other services to prepare kids to learn, or is that something that needs to be looked at as well countywide?
I think we should look at it, and I think we should look at funding. I know, Head Start is always, holding their breath, looking at where their funding is coming from. And, whenever we look at our youngest population and they're our future, and what better place to put our resources than in our future. And it's where sometimes we put the least amount of funding, and daycare providers don't make very much money and often don't have a lot of education, and they need the most. And Head Start is always struggling. I work with them in how to get their funding, and if they have to fill out unbelievable paperwork, and I work closely with them. So I think it's an area that needs a great amount of support, because they do wonderful work with families. Head Start does great work with families and with our children. And Head Start does work with 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and with families, and they go into the homes. And in Family Connections here in the city, they're doing work with the families and going into the homes and working with child care providers. And we need a lot of work in that area. And I think just showing parents, not only doing that hard work. I don't want parents to think, oh, I have to get my kid ready to read. Have some fun with your kids, because it goes by so fast. And have fun, building their vocabulary and reading with them and to them, and just enjoy them.
You mentioned funding. Is that the biggest deterrent probably to most expansion of most of these programs?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
David, the Get Ready to Learn event will be at Clinton Community College in the Stafford building. Again, that's on Saturday, March 21st, 10 a.m. to noon.
Absolutely.
Give us an idea of some of the organizations and agencies that are going to be there.
Yeah, I hate to read, but there's the Autism Alliance, Child Care Council, the Literacy Volunteers of Clinton County, Clinton Essex Franklin Library System, Mountain Lake PBS, I think, will be there as well.
Curious George will be there if the kids want to have a picture with Curious George.
I think the Strand will be sharing some information. There's Journey into Reading, Early Intervention, the Champlain Valley Tech, CV Tech Early Childhood Programs, BHSN Healthy Families will have some information. High Peaks Dental will be present. The Lakeside School at Black Kettle Farms is going to be there, as well as Children's Development Group for Speech. There may be a few more, but this is the updated list today.
A great assortment. There will be a bus service for folks. CART will be running buses from, I think, the Government Center and Ted K Center. So if folks need transportation, they can.
Yeah, no reason not to show up.
And again, like you said, a lot of valuable services will be there, and agencies to talk about the importance of good nutrition and health and teaching kids to read. But as you mentioned, also a lot of fun activities that will maybe show parents and give them some of the tools they need to do this on their own, to take some of these important steps to help with their children's development.
Absolutely.
David, Nancy Jane, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. We appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.